Mark Astor, I want to welcome you to Rise Above. Today's episode is a little different from what we normally do. You are an attorney.
Yep.
You founded a law firm, and this law firm supports families who have, let's say, loved ones who are struggling with addiction, sobriety. Can you help the audience understand a little more about what your firm does?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me as a guest here. This is exciting to be able to, anytime I get to share my mission, it's great, but to be able to share it with you, I was all excited to come up here and see you. So the mission of the firm is to save families whose loved ones are suffering from substance use, mental health disorders, and failed attempts at recovery. So that is the sole mission of the firm. We don't do anything else. And we are taking calls typically from mums and dads, not always. It can be spouses and siblings, but it's 99 times out of 100, it's mum and dad calling us because they have an adult child, 25 to 45, who's got a long history of drug use and mental illness and treatment that doesn't work, and they're probably med non-compliant. They may well have had some involvement in the criminal justice system and maybe even an overdose or two. And they call us and say, hey, we heard you're a lawyer that does this thing. Can you help us? And the answer to that is yes, most of the time. But as you know, recovery takes time. It's not I don't have a magic pill. What I have is hope, and I have a roadmap to recovery. And that's what we do.
Okay, so let's say I have a son. I call you and I say, Mark, my son is 28 years old. He has gone to 3 rehabs. He's gone to 10 detoxes, et cetera, et cetera. He got arrested, spent 2 months in jail. This legal issues. Let's say he is on, parole or parole's prison, but let's
Probation.
yeah. And he's tied up in the legal system. Now, you said hope and you provide this thing. Now, where do you leverage the legal? Does it enable you to now get him into a more prominent rehab? Because families are looking for support too mentally, direction and support. What is the legal aspect there?
So let me back up just a tiny bit, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 components to what we do. There's the legal, and I'll get into that in a second. There's what I call clinical. So I now have 2 clinicians who are part of our team. They're sort of an a la carte option for families. One's a forensic psychologist. The other one is a licensed clinical social worker. And they, if the families want, will come in and basically assess the situation from a clinical perspective. Because the goal here is, it's not just a matter of putting somebody into treatment or putting them into treatment long enough. You got to get them into treatment in the right facility, right, that can address whatever issues they're dealing with. Because at the end of the day, what's has normally gone on, there's some trauma somewhere that triggered an event, that triggered another event, and so on and so forth. So we want to find the right place, and we want to keep them there long enough, and that may involve med compliance and things of that nature. The third component is what I call law enforcement. So I have a retired cop on staff with a team of investigators, because we get a lot of calls from people that go missing. They're out on the streets. They walk out of treatment. And, while I'm a big fan of law enforcement, being a former prosecutor, I mean, sometimes cops just don't have the resources to go looking for somebody on a Saturday night. I'm calling my guy, hey, John, I need somebody to go find this kid. He's out on the street somewhere. Go and find him. And we'll, a lot of time we'll tap into our, law enforcement contacts, but we got to go find this person, right? If I can get on a Monday morning, if I can get a judge to give me a pickup order, now we can work with law enforcement to find this kid, get him and grab him and get him to a place of safety. So we find that those 3 components work well together. In terms of the legal component, there's basically 3 statutes here in Florida that, for lack of a better word, allow us to give a family authority to put somebody into treatment in a clinically appropriate facility and keep them there long enough. So there's the Marchman Act, Guardianship, and Baker Act. And if you want, we can go over all 3 of those statutes.
Sadly, and I love my audience because I'm them as well, but they know exactly what all 3 of those are, I'm sure.
Okay, and so some people say, well, why do you use all 3 of them? Well, it depends. It depends, what do you want? I mean, I always compare a Marchman Act and a Guardianship. It's like a sports car and a pickup truck, right? Sports car will get you there a little quicker, but I could tow a boat with a pickup truck. So what do you want? Do you just want an order to put somebody into treatment? Do you want to make sure they take their meds? Do you want to have access to their medical records? Do you want to take some control of their finances? Do you want to restrict their ability to travel? What about taking away their right to driving so they don't drive drunken or high? What do you actually want? What relief do you need? And so depending on what we need in terms of the amount of control that a mom and dad might need, is how we'll tailor the relief. Now, the Baker Act, the Baker Act is a statute here in Florida. Pretty much every state has a version of the Baker Act, but that is a statute that allows the state to basically take custody of somebody and lock them up without due process. And 8.5 years ago, I lost my dad. And 2 days after I buried him, I had a family member who had a complete meltdown. I was there with the cops, the paramedics. I watched them strap her to a gunny and take her away. So I experienced the Baker Act on a very personal level. And it was a difficult time for me. And I'd only just started the law firm and I was still pretty close to broke. So during COVID, a lot of people started getting Baker Acted here in Florida, and the phone just started to ring off the hook. So the Baker Act has become a useful tool because when we need somebody to get immediate, if they're in immediate crisis, we can pick up the phone and call the cops. But here in Florida, people have been getting sucked into Florida's mental health system and couldn't get out. I file up probably 150 cases a year against the state to get people out of Florida's broken mental health system. But because we know how it works, when we need to use it, we can. And when it happens, even if someone's in treatment, we know how to get them out and get them back on on that right road. So those 3 statutes are key and critical to the work that we do. And it's, what tool do we need for the job?
So it sounds like you really work and aid the families, the parents specifically, in, let's say, I don't want to say controlling, but taking authority when it comes to the alcoholic, the addict, the gambling addict, whatever the addiction is, to get them to chase recovery. Now, my next question for you is, I'm an addict. I am sober 7.5 years. Awesome. I tried. My first meeting was 10 years before I got sober. My mom wanted me to get sober. My father wanted me to get sober. My brothers everyone wanted me to get sober. I wasn't getting sober. You could freaking have a SWAT team come in, take me to rehab, chain me to the bed. As soon as I get out, I'm going to do what I want. And once I have a little bit of freedom, you could take away my car, you could take away my license. I'm still going to find a way to drive. So I'm curious, what are the statistics with your 3-prong approach method? Hey guys, quick update. Every Monday night, I host the Rise Above Recovery meeting. It's an open meeting for any addiction, alcohol, drugs, gambling, food, whatever you're struggling with, you're welcome here. To get the meeting link and weekly updates, just email me at kevin@riseabovepod.com and I'll add you to the list. Also, if this podcast has helped you, please like, subscribe, or leave a rating. It helps us continue to spread the message of hope. Lastly, if you'd like to go even deeper with Rise Above, check out our Patreon. Supporters get access to live interviews and can chat with guests after the interview. Thank you.
Okay, let me back up and ask you a question if I can.
Yeah.
Why were you so resistant to treatment? Did you even think you had a problem?
No.
So you're in denial?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Did you think that everybody in your family was maybe needed to go see a therapist? Because they were all asking you, hey, Kevin, you're killing yourself.
I am going to be very honest with you. And this is gonna help you out here in our little debate. But I knew there was a little inkling deep down that was like, they're right.
But part of the denial process has not even been out to admit even to yourself that you have a problem.
I couldn't admit it to myself, but there was completely 100% admit it to myself. But there was this little inkling. More and more people started to say it to me. More and more people wanted me to get sober. And I knew I had a problem. But I said to myself, I'm different. I'm different. I know myself. When I am ready and when shit really hits the fan, I can pull back and get rid of this addiction.
What does that mean when shit really hits the fan?
For me, it was losing my job. That was like the big one because my identity was my job. And it's crazy. I was doing at my worst point, I was doing probably around 25 Roxy Blues, so 30 milligram oxycodones a day. And for some reason, I was always showing up to work on time and I never missed a day. I mean, the state I was in when I showed up, that's a whole nother story, but I was always showing up. So I was always able to keep the job. Everything else was a complete shit show in my life. and I was losing relationships, everything. Money, I was in probably $100,000 worth of debt, but I still had the job. So to answer your question, shit hits the fan is I'm unemployed.
Okay. So, the way I sort of, because a lot of families will say to us, they'll say, we don't understand. Why is he doing this? Why is she doing this? Why won't they go to treatment? Why won't they stay in treatment? And the way I explain it to them, it's as if your loved one's brain has been kidnapped, right? It looks like them, it sounds like them, it walks like them, but that's not them, right? Their mind has been taken over by some type of behavioral health issue that, could have been triggered by who knows what, right? I mean, that's part of the whole recovery process. But something has triggered this, and now their brain has basically been taken over. And so you cannot objectively rationalize this. And so, I mean, look, there's a couple of options. Number one, family does nothing, right? And that leaves a couple of other options on the table. One is somebody ends up dead. And I hate to be blunt, but I get those calls. We've spoken to families. 6 months later, we touch base and someone's dead.
It happens.
That is the reality. And it does sometimes happen even when we're in the recovery process. And it's a gut-wrenching call to get, right? Because we take the work so personally. And this work, by the way, saved me. And we'll talk about that. So you can do nothing. And, maybe something tragic happens. And I tell the families, the state will step in and do it for you. Either the state will step in and place them into the criminal justice system because people get arrested, do silly things, drive drunk, steal, whatever. Or the state will take them and put them in the mental health system through our Baker Act process. Either way, if they don't end up dead, they're unlikely to get better in the criminal system or the mental health system.
Agreed.
So those are your options. The other option is that you can try and take control of this situation and make the decision that your loved one cannot possibly make to save themselves. And some people say, well, I don't want to force them into treatment. I'm not asking you to force them to do anything. I'm asking you to make the decision that they are physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually unable to make. And in order for you to make that decision, as difficult as it is, we're going to need to go and see a judge so you can get that authority, because they are 25 years of age. And when they turned 18, they then gained the legal right to pretty much determine their own future and how they act. So if you're not going to save them, who is? Who's going to save them? They cannot save themselves. That's where we come in.
So I will say this. I did get, before this time sober, I had a 3.5-year sober stint. And that stint was, I was basically dragged to rehab. And then I had to do like a continued sober living after that. And I was like really, I wouldn't say I was completely held against my will, but I was forced. And I stayed sober for 3
You felt like it was forced.
Yeah, it was forced. But the thing is, to your point, after 90 days, after 6 months, my life started to get better. And I was like, oh, this is pretty great. I'm not doing drugs. I'm living a serene, sober life. And I always thought that I wouldn't find happiness once I got sober. Once I got sober, the party's over. Like, life is over. Happiness is over. You're never going to laugh again genuinely. I was so wrong about that. So the force or the push into sobriety and the extended sober living after inpatient opened my eyes to a whole new world. And I was like, this is actually a beautiful way to live. And why I relapsed, that's a whole nother story. But
okay. And it happens.
Yeah.
And it can happen. How'd you feel after a year?
I felt amazing.
Okay. And I know you're in recovery now. What do you do to maintain recovery?
Yeah.
Because that's a different journey from getting into recovery.
Do you want to know what I did back then when I had the 3.5 years,
Yeah.
or do you want to know what I do today?
Well, let's talk about both.
Okay. So today I wake up, I make my bed immediately, get on my knees, I pray. Then I come downstairs, I take my journal and I read a little passage. It's a Jesus calling book. And I, sit on my porch, read it, and then I journal. I just get those crazy thoughts that we have in the morning out of my head. And then I go about my day. I will go to the gym. I go to a meeting probably 4 times a week now. I have sponsees that call me. I do step work with my sponsees. I call my sponsor once every 3 days. We're actively redoing the steps now. And I'm an active member in, a 12-step program. Now let's rewind back to the 3.5 years sober. I would pray at night, never prayed in the morning. I would make my bed. I wouldn't pray when I woke up. I did not journal. I did not do any kind of implementation of any kind of higher power. So the Jesus calling reading was not happening whatsoever. I sponsored maybe one person over the course of 3.5 years. Today at 7.5 years, I've probably sponsees come and go, unfortunately. But I probably have had upwards of 20 to 25 over the past 7.5 years. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I was going to meetings my first year, the first stint sober, probably 5 or 6 times a week, and then it dwindled after a year and a half down to 3 meetings. Then 2 years sober, it dwindled down to 1 meeting a week. I was just going to my home group, and then it slowly went to I'll go to my home group every other week. Then I'm no longer going to my home group. And then I had shoulder surgery, and I wasn't spiritually fit. I went in, I was prescribed painkillers.
Oxys.
Yeah, oxys.
Yeah.
And we know how that goes.
I had surgery on my arm twice. So the doctor gave me oxys. I flushed them down the toilet. I'm with you.
It's crazy.
Yep.
I told him I'm an wow. No. It is not.
I told him I was
doctor's
an
fault.
attorney. He said the same thing.
I actually, to take accountability, I'm like, oh, the doctor prescribed. It was my fucking decision. I told the doctor just to check it off the list to make the wife happy. I'm an addict. I had an addiction to painkillers. He was like, okay. I said, but the program tells us that if we're spiritually fit, we can do anything, which means, Doc,
I'm good.
If you prescribe them, it's okay. We're just going to give them to my wife. My poor wife. She's European. She doesn't really understand. At the time, she didn't understand the opioid crisis in the U.S. For every 4 to 6 hours, I was to take 1 to 2 Percocets. To me, that is 2 Percocets every 4 hours on the out. Like, we're not missing those 2 perks at all every 4 hours. So there was some manipulation. I knew it was a premeditated relapse way before it even happened. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you talk about what your recovery looks like now, because one of the things by doing this work for the last 10 years, I've been really blessed is to meet amazing people like you, Kevin, and
thank you.
I got a lot of good friends who are in recovery, and without exception, folks like you have been in recovery 7, 8, 10, 15 years. Every single one of them does something on almost a daily basis to work on their recovery. And that's what I tell parents. Look, I don't have a magic pill. So when I talk about hope, that's what I'm talking about. And we sit down, I say, look, this is what a program looks like, right? For us, it's a year-long journey. You don't have to hire me for a year, but I want you to imagine what your loved one was like before any of this craziness. That's where we're going, but it's probably going to take a year, right? You got to do 3 to 6 months of some residential partial hospitalization treatment. You just have to. And after that, you got to work what we call continuum of care. What does that look like? Going to meetings, getting a sponsor, 12 steps, right? Continue with some type of outpatient therapy, right? If you can do that and get to the year, you got a great chance to be able to maintain recovery forever. But don't think after a year, okay, I'm good to go, because you're not good to go. This is like cancer. You don't cure cancer, you go into remission. You don't suddenly cure a behavioral health issue, you go into recovery. And you have to do what it takes, as you have talked about, to maintain recovery, whatever that happens to be. And if you can do that, and it just becomes like, I get up, I brush my teeth, I get up, I journal, I get up, I pray, whatever it happens to be, I'm going to go to a meeting once, twice, 3 times a week, whatever it is, then you have an opportunity here to really experience the miracle. See, what people don't understand is, I don't mean to be rude with this, but it's become so much part of your life. You're like, oh, well, I get up, I journal. You're the miracle. This is the miracle right here in front of me. You're the miracle. And everybody like you is the miracle of recovery. And I want you to know that, because it is a miracle. And for us, this is what motivates me to get out of bed in the morning, is for families to experience what I'm seeing here. that miracle, but it
Mhm.
takes time. It does take time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And you bring up a good point, because with addiction, a lot of people think it's the drug, it's the alcohol, it's the sex and sex addiction, it is the bet and gambling addiction. It's actually not. Those are all symptoms. Drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, whatever it is, those are symptoms. The disease is it's the thinking. It is the obsessive compulsivity. It's the thinking. So to your point now, after a year, it's not like you're cured and you need to stop, right? You've had a year away from drugs and alcohol. So you don't have any kind of like, obsession. The obsession is lifted at that point over the drug, the alcohol, sex, gambling, whatever it is. For me, today, with 7.5 years, my thinking is still the same as it was 7.5 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. My thinking has always been the same. But what I'm doing today changes the scope and the lens that I look through when I am thinking. And, those measures that I take, we could call them preventative measures, from picking up a drink or a drug, journaling, praying, implementing a higher power. When I implement a higher power, listen, it doesn't have to, I don't go to religious programs. That's a whole nother conversation. But when I implement a higher power, my thinking always was, I was not patient at all when I had a feeling, because I couldn't deal with feelings whatsoever. So I masked the feelings, any kind of negative feeling or even happy feeling. I didn't know how to digest that. I didn't know how to deal with that. So I would go right to the drink or drug. Those feelings are still going to be there when you remove the drink and drug. So I implement a higher power so that when I get broken up with by a girlfriend and I am down and out and I want to call her up and scream at her and try to manipulate the situation and convince her why she should get back with me, whatever it is, like all these crazy ideas that I have, or like, I'm going to go to this store because then she'll run into me and then she'll fall in love with me. Like all this crazy shit goes through my head. But today I have tools. I turn that over and I say, you know what? God's got it today. It's okay. I'm going to do me, they're going to do them, and whatever the plan is supposed to be, God will implement that, and it'll happen in the journaling. Those fleeting thoughts that are going through my head, I'm getting them out of my head by journaling them, going to meetings. When I walk into a meeting, whatever I'm thinking about, when I leave after an hour, I am thinking about something completely different. It's crazy how it works.
So your response to the desire to use has changed. And that is just something that you have learned and it's become part of your daily living.
But
But it took
have
time.
to keep doing it every day. It's changed, but it could easily go back if I'm not doing, and this is again to your point, after a year, you're not cured. I could go, all right, let's say tomorrow I stop implementing those practices on a daily basis and stop going to meetings, stop reaching out to other people who are suffering. I am maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in a week, maybe not in a month. Maybe I'll last a year. I don't know. But that thinking will start to go back. And then the easiest way to get rid of those feelings is to drink or drug.
So it's a daily
Daily
journey for you.
reprieve.
Yeah, I mean, and I tell families, look, it's like, I mean, I hate to simplify, but it's like going to the gym, right? If I stop going to the gym, I just
That's exactly what it
turn
is.
into a blob, right? I mean, it just doesn't work. You have to work on recovery. But if you're able to maintain recovery, it's a beautiful thing. But it takes time to get there. I mean, it did for you. You had a relapse, and it's been a journey. And some people are able to go through the journey, and others, unfortunately, I've had people that were in recovery. They relapsed, took a hot dose, gone. That's heartbreaking to get that call.
Yeah.
And, and when I first started doing this work 10 years ago, I said, I'm going to save everybody. It's not realistic. We
No.
can't save everybody, but we can save a shitload of people.
Mm-hmm.
We can save a lot of people.
So you said you got into this line of work 10 years ago. I think you had said you were a prosecutor prior to. What was the motivation to get into this line of work? Did you have someone in your family that struggled, or? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been one hell of a journey for me. So I was a prosecutor here in Palm Beach from 94 to 99. And, you get out of law school, first of all, you're full of piss and vinegar. And now you're a prosecutor with a badge and, a little bit of authority. And you're like, I'm going to nail everybody, right? But what I started to notice pretty quickly was I was seeing the same people coming back over and over and over again. I was like, something's not right here. That guy's on probation. Now he's going to end up going, what's happening here? And what I realized was the people that were tending to come back over and over again had behavioral health issues. I don't know if I ever used that term, but I knew there was a drug issue. And back then it was mostly drugs, right? The problem was back in the mid-90s, and I was prosecutor right around the O.J. Simpson case, was we didn't have any specialty courts like we have now, like drug court, mental health court, veterans court, where we could basically divert people out of the criminal system, get them the help they needed so that they wouldn't be coming back. And, even today, the mandate in the criminal justice system here in Florida is to punish first and rehabilitate second. Well, if you've got nowhere to put them other than in the criminal system, at some point, you're just going to lock them up, right? And so I realized we had a serious problem here. So in '99, I left the office. I had tried so many cases by that time. I was just burned out. I got married. I got divorced. I was married at 34. I was divorced at 35. And a bit like you, I had to take a lot of responsibility for the failed marriage because I was very immature. And I'm sure there's plenty of blame to go around, but I had to accept responsibility for that. And it really sent me on a bit of a tizzy. I didn't realize how devastated I would be after I got divorced. And I think what I realized was I didn't have any purpose in my life. So when I was prosecutor, even though I didn't make any money, in fact, the first 2 years I lived at home with my parents because they didn't pay very well, but the personal satisfaction is immense. And when you're trying serious felony cases, if it's a murder case, you've got the family of a decedent. If it's a violent crime, you've got a victim who may have spent months in hospital because somebody beat the shit out of her. So getting them some closure always used to give me tremendous personal satisfaction. Then I did defense work. And I enjoyed it. It was, intellectually stimulating and challenging, and I made a lot more money, but I was miserable. And, I tried for many years not to practice law. I really was not able to maintain any type of intimate relationship for any kind of period of time. So if I had an addiction, it was probably to women, quite frankly, just dating different women. Now, the first time, you meet a new woman and you're intimate with her, you get that rush.
Oh, yeah.
And the next day you're like, fuck. What am I doing? It doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't.
Yeah.
And so in 2004, I took a year off. I went back. I actually moved up to the District of Columbia, to DC. I really wanted to go back to school, so I did that. I got my master's in law. I worked on a presidential campaign, but my candidate didn't win, but it was a great experience. I got to do legal work for the campaign, and I was part of the advanced team, so I was always with either the vice presidential candidate or the presidential candidate. But in 2005, I had to come back, and I was working in family businesses. I was really just a miserable individual. In 2010, I ran off to California. I took what I had left after the '08 crash, and I basically spent 3 years in California, tripping the light fantastic. I took the bar up there twice and failed it twice. And after 3 years, I was I was broke. I couldn't pay my rent. So I had to come home. I took the bar exam a third time. I studied for it while I was in Florida and failed it. I got within a percentage point, and like you, people were whispering in my ear, the universe is trying to tell you something. You're not supposed to be in California. So, of course, my ego was bruised because I studied for the Florida bar for 3 weeks. I spent a year studying for the California bar and couldn't pass the darn thing.
Yeah.
And I had a friend of mine who actually had been a public defender when I was prosecutor here in Florida, and he opened up a very successful criminal practice in Oakland, California, and said, hey, pass the bar, come be my partner. So I was all excited. I couldn't pass the exam. So I came back, and then I met somebody that basically completely changed the direction of my life. So I went to a breakfast meeting one day down in Coral Gables. It was like a 7:30 breakfast meeting where there was a guy there who was speaking. The guy's name is R. John Robbins. R. John Robbins runs a company called How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And what they do is they teach lawyers all about being, a business owner, an entrepreneur with a law firm. And I watched him speak to about 25 lawyers, and, typical of most lawyers, they looked at him like he had three heads. They were jerks to him. They were rude to him. But I came from an entrepreneurial background. My father left school at 14, my mother 16. And they weren't educated people, but my father built businesses. Some were good, some were bad. Some worked, some didn't. And so when I heard him talking about being an entrepreneur and a lawyer, I was like, oh, wow, that sounds exciting. And after he got done talking, I begged him for a job. And I spent a year working for him and How to Manage. about being an entrepreneurial lawyer. And their focus was on solo law firms, small law firms with, just one or two partners. But at the very, very core of what How to Manage is they are a personal growth company for lawyers. And if there's any profession that needs personal growth, it's definitely the legal profession. And they believe that financial growth has to be preceded by personal growth. I spent a year there, and I realized the reason I'd been so damn miserable is I had failed to take 100% responsibility for my own life, my professional life, my personal life. And I'm like, this is the problem. It's not everybody else. It's me. I'm miserable because of me. I can't have a long-term intimate relationship because of me.
That's powerful.
That was powerful. So after a year, I said, I'm going to open up my own law firm. And I sat down with Audra and he said, who do you want to help? And I said, well, I know this sounds a little odd, but I've got family members and friends who have these issues. I'm going to go help them. He said, well, what's your plan? I said, I don't know. I'm just going to go do it. So in February of 16, I sat myself down in the library in Boca because they had free Wi-Fi and half decent coffee, and I was broke and I had no money. And I got the cheapest business cards you could ever get made from Vistaprint. I went around to treatment centers and said, I'm here to help. And, for the first 14 months, I took other kinds of cases because I had bills to pay. 11 months in, I lost my dad.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thanks. I think about him every day. It's been 8.5 years now, but I still think about him every day. And I hear his voice too. So I tap into him when I need some good insight. And it was a tough time for me because, I just about scraped together the money to pay for a funeral. But meanwhile, I got this small little office, and 14 months in, somebody called me with a behavioral health case. And I met my wife the second year I was there. Now, she didn't become my wife until about 18 months ago because I told her, well, you're never going to domesticate me. It's never going to happen. Right. And so, of course, there were other women and all that fun stuff. And so we worked together for 7 years. And for the first 7 years, it was just us doing everything, the legal work, running to court, doing the sales, the marketing, meeting with the clients. And the last 2 years, we've been able to, to hire staff. So we now have 12 people. But she had an interesting background. So with husband number, when she lived in Massachusetts for about a dozen years with husband number one, she had her 2 kids, who are now my stepchildren. And she had done a lot of guardianship work, which is traditionally a statute used for elderly people. Well, what we figured out was we probably could use guardianship for the kinds of clients that we were working with because they'd give us a family just a ton of control over a really out of control situation. Mm-hmm. And so we started to implement guardianship with the Marchman Act, which is really the only statute we were using. Then my family member got Baker Acted. Then COVID came along and everybody else's clients were getting Baker Acted.
Everyone got Baker Acted.
Everybody was getting Baker Acted. We took the firm virtual because we were the only 2 people in this enormous building. So we built 2 offices out in the house, and we still have our office. And we were running all over the state, handling Baker Acts and Marchman Acts and guardianships. And finally we said, we got to hire somebody because I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? I said to my wife, I'm not going to work on the weekends. I told her that 4 months ago. I worked most of last Saturday and half of Sunday. I still do that. I can't help myself because there are so many people that need help. Yeah. And by saving other people, I was able to save myself. Right? I wouldn't be sitting here. Imagine if I'd have passed that bar exam. I wouldn't be sitting here.
No.
Imagine if I had, and I give so much gratitude to Arjun Robbins for really straightening me out and opening my eyes, right? Because without him, none of this would have happened. It just wouldn't have happened.
So I want to take a step back. You brought up a very good point in one of your experiences. You said that, the gentleman who spoke talked about being financially successful needs to be preceded by
personal growth.
And I feel like not even, yes, very much so with attorneys, but I feel like across the board in the US, there are a lot of people that are just putting their work in front of everything and driving themselves into a rut mentally, even physically, and people are burning out. And mental health is just getting out of control, especially in the workplace. And people are too prideful to ask for help sometimes. And like, oh, well, no, if I just achieve $1 million salary per year, it'll make all my problems go away. I mean, that's hand in hand with addiction. I always said, oh, well, if I get the hottest girl, or if I make $1 million a year, my addiction will go away and I won't need to use anymore. So I want to understand, for the listeners, sake as well, what did you do to really hunker down and work and dial in on your personal growth and your mental health to get where you are today?
So, I tried to think about why I had enjoyed being a prosecutor, even though, I started out, I was making $23,000 a year before I passed the bar, 25 afterwards, and I was making 39,000 after 5 years. So
Oof.
it's not a lot of dough. But there were times I go to work and I'd be like, man, I would have done this job for free, because it gave me so much satisfaction, right? Because I had a bunch of people that I could help, and that felt good. And so I think for me, the personal growth was figuring out, like, what was the missing piece. I was so unfulfilled, right? And when I had plenty of money, you know what I would do? I know, I'll go buy a new car. I don't need it, but I'm going to get it anyway. I've already got one car, so I'll have a second one. Who cares?
Yeah.
I'll go get a second car. And for the first week, felt good. And then all of a sudden I'm like, the fuck do I need another car for? I don't need the car payment either.
Yeah.
So I keep the car 6 months. I lose my house, go back to the dealership, sell it back. You're right. And I was always looking for that. That was my high. Or I'd see a really pretty girl, and I would tell my friend, I got to have her. I just have to have her. Right. And I'd have her. And then I didn't want her anymore. And the girl's looking at me like, what?
It's crazy.
You drove me nuts to go on a date. Right. That was my fix. That was my high. That was my way of making myself feel fulfilled and good. Right. But it doesn't last. Right. You need the next high and the next high and the next high. And I realized what was missing was I didn't have any purpose. Right. So I had to get mission driven, find a bunch of people that needed help, and build a business around helping them. And I love being an entrepreneur. I love getting up every morning and saying, okay, how can I do this better? How can I find more people that need my help? Kevin, I'm going to tell you, I was so excited to come on your podcast. When Stephanie said to me, you're going on Kevin Lanning's podcast, I'm like, are you serious? I said to my wife this morning, I said, what shirt should I wear? She said, I don't think Kevin's is gonna matter. I said, no, I want to have the right shirt. This is a very important, this is the biggest podcast. This is the most important podcast I've ever done.
Thanks, man.
So to come and share this with you was really, really important to me. But that's what gets me excited, is to go out there and share the mission with as many people as I can. Because if I can share it with more people, there's an opportunity to help more people, right? And that's the personal growth for me. How many people can I actually help? How many families can I inspire and motivate to make the decision to save whoever it is in their family that needs the help? And for them to know it's okay, right? It's going to be okay. You're not alone, right? There's a lot of people out there who are experiencing this issue, right? They have somebody in the family, and it's not the stigma that it used to be associated with it, with these behavioral health issues. It's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
It really is. And you can change the direction of your family, of your loved one. And there's people out there who want to help. So
you shifted your purpose in the business world and what you're doing. I worked in corporate America. Now I worked at Google. I loved working at Google. The people I was working with at Google were absolutely amazing. But tech work, I didn't love it. Who was I helping? And then I shifted and I started doing a podcast. The most fulfilling thing in the entire world is when someone reaches out and they're like, hey, I have 32 days today. I just wanted to let you know I started watching your podcast 32 days ago and it inspired me to get sober. Thank you so much. That, like you talked about with the car, it goes away after like a week, right? You get a high for like a week. That high, it's not even a high. It's just purpose. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It is the most amazing feeling in the world. And I think that, you talked about before you work weekends. Is it really like you're working though? Because you're helping people and you're doing what you want to do and it's giving you purpose.
Yeah. It's such an interesting point, because I find, when I was talking about, I said to my wife, I won't be able to work forever. And she said, you're not going to be able to retire. She's like, if we go 2 days and we don't get a new case in, she's like, you're bouncing off the walls. She's like, you're going to need to find a mission. She's like, whatever it is, even if it's not this, you'll have to do something else, right? So I think for guys like us, we have to have purpose in our life, right? We've got to be making some kind of dent in the universe. Otherwise, what's the point of getting out of bed in the morning?
Yeah.
So we are mission driven guys.
Yeah.
We are.
So I got to be the bad guy now.
Go ahead.
And at least try to poke some holes. But no, I'm not going
to. Listen, I'm an open book. You can ask me anything.
No. Do you have statistics on your clients? Like, what is the success rate when a family reaches out to you? If you have any of those metrics that you could share, that would be great.
Yeah, I don't know if we keep specific numbers. What I can tell you is, because we're typically involved in a case anywhere between 6 months to a year, the clients the families that work the program typically get great results. They experience their loved one experiences recovery and things move on. And unless we hear from them, we know that things are good.
Yeah,
and we try to keep in touch with our clients. The ones that don't work the program, right, insist after 30 days everything's okay. They typically come back. Sometimes we don't hear from them in a while, and we call them, and then something tragic has happened. So, in my experience, if we can get them to that 1 year, and we're involved in a lot of cases up to a year, miracles happen. Right? When they don't work the program, things go sideways. Right? They didn't get them into the right program. They call us. Oh, he's been in treatment 30 days. He's fine. No, he's not. He's not using. I know he's in treatment. That's why he's not using. Or he's med compliant. That's why he's not using. He's fine. He says he's got it from here. He does not have it from here. He's going to relapse. I'm going to give it a week. If that, he's going to relapse. Okay, we'll tell the judge we're good. Week later, they call us back, right? And so the ones that don't work the program, unfortunately, suffer the consequences. And I hate to use the word suffer, but these families are suffering.
Yeah,
right. They really are. So,
what does your service cost? So let's say they take the 3-prong approach. You got to go pull them out of a crack house with your SWAT team. You got to get them out of some legal shit and advise and help provide clinical support, the whole gamut.
Yeah, I mean our average case value is about $9,800.
$9,800 per month.
No. So let's say they hire us to do a Marchman Act.
Yeah. And
those cases are a 3-month commitment. A case like that's about 10.5, something like that, not including treatment. So it's about $3,333 a month.
Okay, that's not bad.
It's not bad.
Listen, it's a lot of money.
And it's not an hourly case, so you can call me 100 times a day, right? I mean, you can call as much as you want. I mean, we keep track of our hours to make sure my staff are doing their job, but I typically don't. I'm not necessarily charging by the hour. Even on a guardianship, which is a more expensive case, I mean, they're paying me a flat fee to do the first 20 hours of work, and that's normally enough to get them all the way through a permanent guardianship. After that, I'm probably going to bill them hourly. But
of course, I get that.
They're paying us to get the job done. I mean, for instance, on a guardianship case where we may be in the case for a year, I mean, we are counsel record now. If we're not actively running back to court all the time, even though with a lawyer, I'm not billing you, right? I mean, I'm there for you, but I'm not sending you a bill every month just to be the lawyer.
Yeah.
You need me, you call me, right? So I try to be reasonable with the fees, but and I tell clients the cheapest part of this whole process is probably going to be me, right? Really good treatment is expensive.
It is,
which is
it's insane.
And I'll finance a case for you if you qualify for it. You can make monthly payments, right? But really, really good treatment is not cheap, right? So hopefully there's some insurance, there.
An interventionist to sit your loved one down in, let's say, New York City is probably $5,000 to $10,000 for 2 hours of their time. Like, that's insane. I honestly thought your rates were going to be much higher. That's actually, listen, you're also advising them legally as well. So that within itself is worth more than 10 grand.
Yeah. And some families will say, well, that's a lot of money, just to file a piece of paper. I'm like, yeah, but it took me 31 years of being a lawyer to know what to put in that piece of paper that's going to get your kid into treatment.
Yeah.
You're not paying me to file the piece of paper. You're paying me for all of the things that I learned over the years to get it right the first time. Yeah. And it's so, I understand. And, when clients come to us, we're going to say, look, I need you to make a commitment of time, energy, and money. Well, you've probably been dealing with this for a long time. You're probably exhausted, and you've probably spent a boatload of money already on either treatment and or maybe a lawyer as well. And now I'm asking you to spend more and commit more time and more energy. People are tired by the time they come to us, you know? They are. And the reason I built the team the way I did is to try and give them some emotional support, right? Because this is exhausting, and it's frightening to go to court. It's frightening to call a lawyer, right? Nobody wants to be sitting on the opposite side of the courtroom to their adult child in an adversarial hearing. Nobody wants that. It's uncomfortable.
Let's have a little fun now. What is one of the craziest stories that you have with your team of detectives? I think you said retired police officers where they had to kind of go bail someone out or find someone.
Oh, this is a good one. So, I have put a number of lawyers into treatment because they say lawyers are twice as likely to develop a substance use disorder. So I've put a number of lawyers into treatment. I've also represented a number of lawyers. And as it happens, lawyers are not always the best clients because, well, they know everything. Even the shit they don't know, they know, right? So we had a lawyer that called us. He had I think she was mid-30s daughter. And if you met her, by all appearances, very attractive, very smart, very bright, and had a terrible issue with alcohol. I mean, if you put a bottle of hand sanitizer on the table and turned around, she'd drink it, right? And so, I said to the dad, look, let's file a Marchman Act, get you an order to put her into treatment. But I really think we should look to file for guardianship too, because one of the things we need to be able to do is to restrict her ability to travel. No, I'm not doing guardianship. Okay. So we filed this case, and we had a treatment center lined up. I think it was somewhere in the middle of Palm Beach County. All I remember is it was these two buildings that were at the treatment center, and they were surrounded, as far as the eye could see, with cornfields, sugarcane fields. And I said to myself, if she walks out, where is she going in the middle of the night, right? So we get into court. She says, I'm going to agree to go to treatment under the court order. Awesome, right? And so the judge says, Mr. Aster, is there anything else we need to address? Your Honor, we're good. Miss So-and-so, anything you want to tell the court before I tell I read the court's order? Yeah, actually, there's one thing. Okay, what is it? Well, I'm finishing up this degree online. I'd really like to be able to have, just for 24 hours, my phone and my laptop. So the judge looks at me, what do you think, Mr. I said, Your Honor, not a good idea. Please don't do it. I'm going to give it to her. We get her into treatment. What do you think she did? In the middle of the night, she calls an Uber, takes the Uber to the airport, and jumps on a plane to Mexico. Calls her father and says, I'm in Mexico. So I called my investigator. I said, John, you better get down to Mexico right now and get her back here. She got down there thinking how clever she was, and then realized she was in the middle of Mexico all alone.
John was your detective?
John's my investigator.
Okay, go ahead.
He got on a plane and went down there and found her and brought her back. And we got her into treatment. But, sometimes crazy shit happens, right? I tell families, I say, here's the deal. The one thing that I can tell you that's very predictable about this kind of case is it's unpredictable. They're going to have good days and bad days, right? Good weeks, bad weeks. And hopefully the good days outnumber the bad, but it's going to take time to get there. But I can't tell you how they're going to be in the morning. Well, what happens? Can they walk out of treatment? Yeah, they can walk out of treatment. Well, lock him up. He's not a criminal. I can't lock him up. A judge can lock him up if he violates the court order we're going to use to put him into treatment, right? Which is why I have an investigator. But, there are some things, when you're dealing with behavioral health that are unpredictable. And so kind of got to have the resources to deal with those things, which is why my phone, I have a phone that's on to 24/7 because you never know. Saturday night, someone runs out of treatment. John, they ran out of treatment. I need you to go and find them. Call the sheriff's office and, see if they can get a couple of deputies to try and help us to find this kid.
Dog the bounty hunter.
I know Dog too. But that's
do you really?
I do. I met Dog. Great guy.
Wow.
Dog's an interesting guy. I met his new wife. They're good people.
What was your experience meeting him?
It was at a behavioral health conference, and turned out we had a mutual friend. And she's like, hey, do you want to meet Dog? I'm like, Dog the bounty hunter? She's like, yeah. So I met him. And you know what's weird? He's just the same as he is on TV. That's Dog.
Yeah.
He's a really nice, warm, loving human being.
Yeah.
He really is. He's a genuine guy.
Yeah.
Great guy. I really enjoyed him. But he's Dog.
That's
and
awesome.
I met his new wife, and she's nice as pie as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they both had former spouses that died of cancer.
Oh.
She lost her husband to cancer, and he lost his wife to cancer. And they met, and good people.
That's great.
Good people.
So what was one of the craziest stories or cases you came across when you were a prosecutor?
So I think the craziest one I had actually was the very last one that I actually prosecuted. So I had this case. It was an attempted first-degree murder. And the victim in the case, she was actually a police officer. And she had this ex-boyfriend, and she'd been in the military, and he'd been in the military. And that's, that was their connection. Well, he was an abusive guy. And when they got out of the military, she didn't want to be with him anymore. And he was just not the kind of guy that was going to take no for an answer. So she's in police academy. She's in class. And I guess they were in a break, and she went out to the parking lot to get something from a car, and he attacked her in the parking lot with, it was a knife. It had to be a 9-inch blade, and attacked her and just started to hack at her, okay? Fortunately, some of these other police cadets saw what was happening, and a bunch of them ran out, including the instructor, and they jumped on the guy, and they pulled him off, and they were able to save her. She was, pretty banged up, and he actually took the knife and tried to commit suicide. He was trying to stab himself. And so, I had this case. I knew, once I got the case, I was probably going to leave the office. And I said, look, I'm probably leaving the office, but I'm going to stick around, and I'm going to nail this guy for you. And, he claimed that it was an insanity case. He said he had, this insane movement, right, where he just couldn't help himself, and he had to attack her, and it wasn't him, and it was his. But see, the problem was there was a whole line of events that led up to it. He had gone over to her house about a week before, and there was somebody else in the family there. And he said, he'd asked the family member, he needed a knife. She said, what do you need a knife for? Oh, I went fishing, and I need a pretty good sized knife. I'm going to gut these fish. So I found out about this, and I put that family member on the stand. And she said, yeah, he was over the house about a week before. I gave him the knife. He said he needed to gut some fish, which made it very clear this was premeditated, right? It wasn't a matter of insanity. It was premeditated, and
wow.
The jury convicted him. I think he got 9 or 10 years.
He got 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah. I actually had now I think about it, I had another case that was where I locked the guy up for life. So I had this case. This guy was charged with, I think it was kidnapping. And he was what they call a prison release reoffender. So it was like 3 strikes and you're out. And it was a first-degree felony, which meant if they convicted him, the judge would have no discretion, would have to give him life. So he again, it was like a boyfriend-girlfriend thing where they'd been on and off, and he had twice before been prosecuted for, some type of domestic violence case, and then they get to trial, she wouldn't show up, right? So he'd get convicted of something else, and then there'd be another case, and I was really concerned that this woman would not show up to trial. And before the case went to trial, I went to my boss and I said, Paul, I said, I don't know if this woman's going to show up to trial. I said, he's been sitting in the can for 18 months pending, the trial. She may not show, in which case he's going to walk. What can I do? Do I have some leeway here? Because it's a life felony. He said, offer him another 5 years. See if you'll get him to take 5 years. So I went to the defense lawyer and I said to the lawyer, I said, here's what I can do for you. I said, if your guy will do 5 more years, he waives the 18 months, I'm good. He says, we're not doing that. So I said to myself, he thinks she's not going to show up to trial, right? He thinks she's not going to come. He's going to walk him. Now, before the trial, we had they'd taken her deposition, and in the deposition, this woman was she was almost numb. She was so traumatized, she was numb. There was zero emotion. And I said to myself, shit, if she testifies like this, the jury's never going to believe her. She's got no emotion. Now, I knew one thing about this lawyer. I knew that when he got her on the stand, that he was gonna go after her. He was gonna try and nitpick everything she said. He was gonna take her deposition and try and shove it up her ass. And he was gonna go after her and go after her and go after her and just go after her. And normally I would prepare a witness for that. I would say, listen, this is what's going to happen. This is what you should expect, so it's not a surprise. This is the one time I didn't prep her. I didn't prep her for the cross-examination. I prepped her for my direct, but I didn't prep her for cross. I said to myself, there's only way I'm winning this case is if I can get her to be emotional. So she got on the stand, and he just went after her and went after her and went after her. And then after about 45 minutes, she just snapped.
It triggered her.
It triggered her. She suddenly jumped off of the stand, started to cry and scream, and she ran out of the courtroom. And it was the first time, the case had been pending for probably 2 years, I'd seen any emotion out of her. And the jury were like, so the judge says, Mr. Astor, we should take a recess. I said, good idea, Your Honor. Let's take a recess. Took a recess for half an hour. She came back in. She finished her testimony. My next witness, I think, was a doctor. And he had examined her right after, because what had happened was he'd run her off the road, took her back to the house, sexually assaulted her, pistol whipped her, and almost choked her to death.
Oh.
And then, for whatever reason, decided to let her go. That was sort of the underlying facts of the case. So the doctor who was the next witness had examined her right afterwards. And I said, Doc, did you see her run out of the courtroom? He said, yeah, I was waiting in the hallway. I said, you see how emotional she was? He said, yeah. I said, how did her emotional state when you just saw her compare to the night you saw her after he'd assaulted her? He's like, that's exactly what she was like. Done. I got him. Because at that point, right, now the jury knew what she looked like the night this guy tried to rape her and ran her off the road. They got it. And I think they convicted him within 2 hours. The judge was like, sorry, I got no discretion.
So it's a 3-strike act.
Life
in prison.
He's still there.
He could have done 5 years and he would have been out.
Yeah.
No, that's insane. Well, that's what you get for kidnapping your girlfriend and not listening.
And pistol whipping her and sexually assaulting her.
Insane.
And all that other fun
People
stuff.
are fucking insane. So I want to thank you for coming on. This was a great interview. And I love how you shared your personal experience and, some of the mental struggles that you were dealing with, and it kind of propelled you into what you're doing now and helping others. What is the name of your firm so that if people want to look for you, they can find you?
So we've got 2 websites. The main website is mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. That's mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. The other site, which is to do with the Baker Acts, is bakeractattorneys.com, or they can just Google me. I'm not as much on social media as you, but I try to put out video content every day so people can get what the information they need for free. So if you just Google Mark Astor, you'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and Vimeo.
Mark Astor, the lawyer. And you're in Florida.
I'm in Florida. So interestingly enough, most of our clients, our moms and dads, are not in Florida. We take calls from Hawaii, New York. I've had a couple of international clients, but their loved ones are either in Florida, coming to Florida, or I'm figuring out how to get them here. Because once they're here, then I can have jurisdiction over them and I can do my thing.
It's the recovery capital of the U.S.
There's still some great treatment here.
There is.
Yeah, there really is. And look, if there's nothing clinically appropriate here, I'll find you something out of state.
Yep.
If I need to. So I'm here. I'm here to help. That's it. That's my purpose, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I want to thank you again. And this is going to help a lot of people. And I thank you for what you do.
Thank you for letting me share it.